All the words that I read, they don't mean anything. Though I try and pretend like they're over my head, and that I'll understand when I'm old and retired. Even though I freak out when it all comes to mind, I've heard the best way to progress is to start walking forward. But what happens when the only direction is inward? Oh no, I think I've got nothing to know. I'm tired of letting things go.
Howdy folks, I'm Dan Gross and welcome to the 30th episode of the Rochester Indie Musician Spotlight, Rochester's premier music and interview show. We are coming to you live from Bop Shop Records, our home for season 4, and seasons 3 and 2 is our lovely studio audience got treated to the brief version of our story. Give it up for Jake Bellissimo. And before we get going, let's take a word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Bernunzio Uptown Music, Bop Shop Records, and Row Photo. Bernunzio Uptown Music, located in Rochester's East End, has been providing Rochester and the world with quality vintage, new, and used string instruments since 1976. Bernunzio also offers concerts, workshops, and jam sessions. This season we're in this warm, local, and creative space, Bop Shop Records. Located right outside the city at 1460 Monroe Avenue, Bop Shop Records is your Rochester home for blues, classic rock, jazz, and Americana roots music in vinyl for the past 35 years. Row Photo is your one-stop shop for photo, home theater installation, audio, and accessory needs. For 3 generations since 1898, Row Photo is there for you with second-to-none customer service. Stop by Row Photo's 2 convenient locations today. Jake, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So, I don't know how we fit all these people into this space, but we somehow did.
We fit into smaller spaces.
I can't imagine that, because when you first told me that, my first thought was, have you been in the store before? But, I mean, I think you have, but we got everyone in there.
Yeah,
okay.
No, it works good.
So I'm excited about sound check, so this will be good. Can you tell us a little bit about how you started in music, whether it was singing, playing an instrument? How'd you start out?
When I was younger, I joined a bluegrass band, and then from there, I taught myself guitar and bass, and then got deeper into rock music, I guess, or what we refer to as that, until I went back to classical music. Started applying to schools.
Yeah.
To Rochester.
When you were in that bluegrass band, did you join in as a singer? Because you said
I played double bass. Yeah.
Look at that! I'm a double bass player myself, so that makes me warm inside. So you eventually taught yourself guitar too.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you went back to classical music at one point. So was that sort of in your family at your time, or you taking piano lessons early on?
When I was younger, I played viola, and but I just wasn't really interested in it. So by the time I started playing double bass, I just dropped viola entirely. And then like 3 years later, when I decided to go back to classical music, I had to relearn the instrument. I still play viola now, but yeah.
So what drew you back to classical music? Because you said, I mean, if the first thing you were doing was joining bluegrass playing and then doing rock, what sort of drew you back into the classical realm?
I think it must have been like avant-garde music in general. A lot of the heavier sounds and like 90s rock music led me to more strictly noise music. And then from there I found more avant-garde classical composers like Stockhausen and Cage. And that helped me get into like composition.
Right, so that's actually a perfect lead-in. So in this time, when was your first songwriting experiences? When you were doing that when you were younger, when you were first learning guitar?
I was in a hardcore band when I was 15 with 2 friends of mine, and that was my first experience writing songs.
What were those early songwriting days like? Where were your inspirations from? What was that sort of time like when you were first figuring out songwriting?
Sexual frustration and anger.
Yeah. To be blunt about it.
That was really it, yeah.
And so, kind of all this time, all these things working together. So you are at Eastman now. So are you a viola performance major? Is that what your major is?
No, I study composition. I'm doing a double major. I study composition and then I do musical arts, which means like I'm currently working on a thesis about queer music in America before Stonewall.
Now you only have 1 year left, right?
Yeah.
On your undergrad or both?
Undergrad, yeah.
Feeling excited about it?
Yeah.
He hesitated because he knows other Eastman students is here. So you said something I definitely wanted to touch on. One of the reasons I wanted to do this is because I wanted to have this conversation with you. You identify as non-gender binary. So
Yeah.
can you talk to us a little bit about what that means to you? And I mean, you sort of mentioned early on in your songwriting that was sort of something you were exploring musically and wanted to talk about.
Well, the sexual frustration was unrelated to gender identity, but that had to do with, like, I just spent a lot of my youth as a gay man, I guess. But that was just a few years ago that I realized that a lot of these feelings of dysphoria or feelings of uncomfortability was because I just don't really identify as a guy. That doesn't really affect my music, maybe subject content, or just I do a lot of, I play a lot in like queer-oriented spaces and like, and a lot of socially conscious spaces, so I think that affects maybe who I associate with and where I play, but not really what I write.
Well, well, you said it does sort of change what you're writing about.
Yeah, I guess what I'm writing about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what can you kind of give us an overview of, and you can talk about your previous albums too. What's sort of the Jake Bellissimo body of work like? How much does it sort of touched on these themes that we've discussed so far?
A lot, I guess, because, well, that's just such a huge part of my life that naturally, if I'm writing about catharsis and talking about like how I'm feeling, that gets in there. My first group, my first group where I was leading entirely and doing songs was when I was a freshman at Eastman, and we recorded under the name Gay Angel, and it was just like I would. I've written about like a song a day for the past 3 years, and so I have a lot of songs, and I would just get everybody into a room at Eastman. Like, I think our first recording session was 30 people in a single room, and I had this offer to put a record out, and so I quickly got 9 songs together, or 10. We didn't end up using one, and we recorded this record with just everyone in a room. We all had iPhones, and we just put out the iPhones to record it, and then I mixed it later, and a month later we had a finished record.
And when
that
was this?
mastered. That was freshman year, so that was like 3 years ago for me, or
And so
4 years ago, sorry.
And that was your first album?
Yeah.
Now you've come out with another one in between this one that is going to come out very soon in October. So let's talk about this upcoming one a little bit. We've touched on some of the sort of the general themes. Are you just sort of expanding what you're doing, both in terms of the content you're talking about and the orchestration in this upcoming album?
What do you mean?
So how was the first album? When I know obviously you're not recording it with iPhones anymore.
No, we are.
Oh, you're still recording it with iPhones? No kidding.
Yeah.
So why still do it with iPhones then?
It's just become my workflow. Like, it's really easy. Well, it's not. It's like its own art form.
Yeah.
But it's just what I'm used to.
Yeah.
I've tried not using not using iPhones. There was when we were doing 2 years ago, I did a 100-song album called Floral, which was the second Gay Angel album, and for that I tried working in a studio because I had an offer to work with someone in a studio and like a producer, and that didn't end up so well. Just because it just didn't. I like using iPhones, and that doesn't really work in a studio. Also, also though, it just it's very comfortable.
Yeah.
It's very easy to mix things. A lot of the importance of our early sound was just live stuff. Like, as you heard, when everyone plays together, it creates a sound inherently.
Right.
So we just ran with that, and then I realized later, oh, that's our sound.
Right.
And then we started doing separate recordings later, but that was really important to get a live take.
Yeah. Are you still sort of doing that approach with The Good We've Sown, the new album that's coming out in October?
No, that was recorded. I played most of the instruments on that, and recorded everything separately. But that was the first album in which I did that. Floral was a lot of me recording things by myself, but for the most part, it was still working with like getting everybody together for 2 hours, recording 4 foundation tracks, and then me in my dorm room layering instruments on top of it.
Yeah. So where can we find both The Good We've Sown and all your previous albums?
I run a record label called Drunk with Love Records, and if you look that up, you can find all my stuff that I've released.
Sounds good. We'll get the website later, and I'll put a handy link there so people can follow.
Good.
So you got through most of the questions. So give Jake a round of applause. He got through the bulk of the questions. So this next thing, so we're calling this the lightning round. I think the name and both what's in it changes every show. So, you know, we're riding the lightning, as we say around here. So these are big questions, but we'll go through them. So if you could accomplish one thing in music and be happy, what would it be? Take your time. It's a big one.
Record something that ABBA would have done.
That's a pretty good goal. Now you're going on a little tour with the Good We've Sown album, but I sort of mean this next question in more of a global sense. If or when you leave Rochester, how would you like people to remember you and your music?
I'm not sure, to be honest. Maybe communal, because like a lot of the recordings, this group is ever changing, and it's not really, well, everyone's a great musician, but first and foremost is just friendship, and like they're all pals. So when we were doing Floral, there were like 60 musicians on that record going in and out of my dorm room and practice space recording stuff, and so if anything would be summed up, it would probably be just the communal aspect that creates.
Cool. And I have one more. I know you are kind of still in school, and we're all of us young people are finding our way as well. But do you have any advice for both fellow and aspiring artists?
Listen to ABBA.
It's pretty good. Ladies and gentlemen, Jake Bellissimo. I'm Dan Gross. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Rochester Indie Musician Spotlight, and stay tuned. We'll have some great music for you. Ladies and gentlemen, Jake Bellissimo and their orchestra.
Just like in the Red Sea, show me a new chord, so I won't be so bored with the same premonitions I get from indecision. The old classical traditions put me back into positions of submission. I can't do that, so I'll go out and buy a new hat to remake myself untaken. There's something definitive like that. All the words that I read, they don't mean anything, though I try and pretend like they're over my head, and that I'll understand when I'm old and retired, even though I freak out when it all was too late. I've heard the best way to progress is to start walking forward, but what happens when the only direction is inward? Oh no, I think I've got nothing to know. I'm tired of letting things go. Times I have to think it's true that I will always change no matter how much I think I'm intellectual when I am really not. So I'll see you when I'm 30, I'll see you when you see me. When I've made up my mind, I want to skip to that time. I want to know when that will be. Oh, stagnant future me, stagnant future me, stagnant future me, stagnant future me. I'm tired of letting things go.
Thanks, everyone. Like I was telling Dan, I did 2 years ago, I did a 100-song album called Floral, and that was a song off of that. And I'm going to play you a song now that is the sequel to that song, or was written 2 years later. Similar subject, different perspective. It's off of that upcoming album I have. In October on this, I recently signed a small record thing with this Italian record label called We Were Never Being Born. Thanks. And they've been super kind and awesome, and they're doing that in October. So this song is from that. And for this one, it's a bit interactive. I want you to think about the last time you didn't realize that something was ending until it was over. This is the last time it happened to me. It's called The Sky Without a Hole.
I still can't see our relation to the ship. We threw off course and that's why, of course, I can't tell why I feel weak in the knees. Is my heart feeling love or is it feeling heart disease? Colors that can only be seen overseas. A boy from Portugal who isn't Portuguese. The times we got drunk off rosé with ease. And a love that didn't know which side to please. Oh, so that's the way it goes. I'll find a sky without a hole, a new hobby to pursue, and a new TV show to get wasted to. So that's the way it goes. The time we had won't come back, but new time will grow. Burning skies and white nights without sleep. The way the light touched your eyes off beneath Shinsi. Ba-ba-da-da-dum-bum. 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 Ba-da-dum-bum. Ba-ba-da-da-dum-bum. Ba-ba-da-da-dum-bum. So that's the way it goes. Nobody has a heart without some holes. But trying to fix them leads to no end. And that's why I might go clubbing again. So that's the way it goes. But the key word is goes. It goes, it goes. I still have so much I've yet to know. But unlike last time, I'm a little less tired of letting things go. I spoke our names out loud to an empty street and heard them bounce back for the first time without meaning. It took that moment to occur to me. We had fallen in love, but then we fell out.
So, for this next one, it's also off of that new record. It is, I'm going to take you back to Berlin, Germany in the summer of 2015. So this is when I first moved to Berlin. I lived there for a year. I was doing research in perception of sound and avant-garde performance and just working on music stuff. And I moved there in about July of 2015. And so whenever I move to a new place, I get really nervous because I never know how things are going to go or how I'm going to adjust to my new environment. And so to get myself to do things, I make to-do lists, like very simple tasks that I can do. So at the end of the day, I can say, okay, I did this, even though my brain may not want to say I did. And that's just how it goes sometimes. You make to-do lists, you start doing things, and next thing you know, you're seeing a guy, it's going really well, and one night he invites you to go to a karaoke bar and you say sure. And you know how like when you're walking towards a bar or a club or just a very lively section of a downtown area, and as you get closer, you can start to hear music softly but surely play in the background like this. that you're passing by the Rochester S-Bahn station. It gets a bit louder. And then you enter. Hang up your coat. Buy a €6 beer. And sing some songs. And you know, I usually hate bars, especially karaoke bars, on a Wednesday night because you never know what the crowd's going to be like, and sometimes it makes me very uncomfortable to be in a room full of people where the only reason they're congregating is because of alcohol. But this song isn't really about that. It's about two people who were there that night who had something in common other than loving to get plastered.
Look at us in the dark, dancing queens. I can't help but think about the nights so stark that I spent in Fenway Park with my dad and his dad, not alive but burned on the underside of my seat. Well, the Grand Marquis sang something sweet about someone named Caroline. So what if that's all we had? We did what we could and that was that. Psychologists would like to assume what it says about me, why I'm here with you, dancing in the dark. So look at us and look at me, but don't reach in me by it if you do. Don't tell me what's inside or why it's there, 'cause I don't care why I love you, I just do.
Sorry, I totally forgot to ask Kat to come up. This is Sean, this is Emma, this is Elisa, this is Mike, this is Kat, this is Ben, Sloan, Caroline, Gabe, Ian, Nick. That's our little group.
Yeah! So I think this is actually the most amount of people who have ever played at Bop Shop, so that's pretty cool. I think the previous largest group was 8, so that's pretty exciting.
But this next song isn't a song I wrote. It's a song written by my great-grandfather, who was the last person in my family to do music about like 100 years ago. And this was back when you had to sell sheet music to sell songs, and so this is like in the 20s and 30s and 40s, and he tried to, but he wasn't successful, so he decided to raise a family instead. And fast forward about, well, they also did like theater organ and stuff, but the main story is that. And so, fast forward like 70, 80 years, and my grandmother gives me a set of 78s of his music, like metallic records that has recordings from the 40s of him and his friends performing his music. And I'm really excited to say that early next year, the record label I run, Drunk with Love Records, will be publishing a posthumous album of his with these original recordings from the 40s. And I'm going to play one of those songs with the help of my friend Kat. It's called I Have a Flower. So like I said, I write songs a lot, and I have a lot left over, typically. And so for this new record, well, there was a time in my life where I was having trouble writing music because I was having so many things happen that I didn't have enough time to process it, let alone write about it. And so to get myself to continue writing music frequently, I had a lot of letters I had to write to friends, and so instead of giving them letters, I gave them each an album of like 9 or 10 songs. And I'm going to play one of those songs. It's off of, if you pre-order my record, which would be helpful because of finances, and also they look nice. It also sounds nice. But we're doing these really cool clear vinyl and pink vinyl and CDs as well. So that'll be fun. But if you pre-order it, you get a bunch of extra stuff, including an EP of a few unreleased songs. This is one of them. It was written about a time, it's from a letter I wrote for my friend Liz. It's from a time when I was living in Berlin and David Bowie had just passed away. So this was January 2016. And my friend C texted me and said, hey, are you going to that David Bowie vigil that's happening at his old apartment? Because I live near where David Bowie lived when he was in Berlin. And I said, sure. So me, my then boyfriend, and C go to this David Bowie vigil, and we quickly find out that it's just a bunch of people seeing who could cry the hardest and Vice editors taking notes. And that wasn't really our sort of scene. So we decided to buy some beers, go to the nearest Subway, and just talk about our favorite David Bowie songs. And so when we were doing that, my friend C grabs his OP1 synthesizer and starts running around the subway station recording a David Bowie cover. And while I'm watching him do this, I notice that Max leans over and kisses me. I look at the clock, and that it's midnight, and that meant it was my birthday. And this song is about that. It's called January 19th, 2016, and then today. I move around a lot, and I don't want to hit my friend by accident.
I think I'm trying to make up a reason once again for why my skin feels heavy and there are holes in my head. Liz, I am trying to figure out why I feel so weak in the knees. Is my heart feeling love, or is it feeling heart disease? You see, my 21st birthday happened 1 week ago, on January 12th, but I think that much you know. And the day before we said goodbye to a falling star, and we were drinking in the U-Bahn like it was a karaoke bar. But when the clock struck midnight, I felt his lips slowly burn across mine, and I thought it would be okay. I thought it would be okay if I could live life happy this way. But as you could have guessed, that's not just how things had been. 'Cause there were too many times where I didn't know if I was in his heart. But at least I figured out that I couldn't love him however he wanted me to, or at least I know that now. You see, my 21st birthday happened a few months ago, and now I'm still 21, but I feel like I have grown so much more since then.
Thanks. So, Nick, could you come up here for this song? Thanks. I think you're the person who's been playing with us for the longest. Yeah, for 3 years almost, I think.
Yeah.
Wow. So, like it was mentioned before, I go to Eastman. I'm a composition major, which is fine. And no, it's great. I have some professors who are really supportive, and I owe a lot to. So that's nice. It actually is. And this relates though because I was talking. This next song is off of my first record, the one I was talking about, which was recorded during my freshman year. And I was talking with this guy because I'm always talking with some guy at any given moment of my life. And this person in particular, though, came to Rochester to visit me one weekend. And he drove all the way here. He had a hotel room. It was going to be really romantic or whatever. And what ended up happening was that we went to the Rochester Philharmonic to see Beethoven's Ninth Symphony be performed the night that he got here. And I had this epiphany that I couldn't reciprocate the feelings that this person deserved. And so the next morning, I broke it off, and he stayed in his hotel room for the rest of the weekend, and I stayed in my dorm room and got drunk and watched Sex and the City, which is an event not unique to this occasion, unfortunately. But this all relates, though, because I had this epiphany when I was watching this, that not only could I not love this person, but sometimes you work really hard to get to a certain place in your life, or you work really hard to get a promotion or to impress somebody. Or, let's say, get into a classical conservatory to study composition, for an example. And sometimes you find, though, that some itches, once you scratch them, they don't need to be scratched anymore. And that can be a bit scary if you're not prepared for that. And so this is about that. It's about kind of realizing that not only did I have to have the burden of breaking somebody else's heart, but also the burden of breaking my own heart, and realizing that I might be in the wrong profession. And after this, I went home and wrote this song, which was one of the first songs of mine that I took seriously. It's called I'm Artificial. And the ending is that I still do composition, but just differently than I expected.
When I think about all of the people I've kissed, the number is much larger than those I've missed. But as we stand in front of a coffee shop, I wonder if I'm ready to hold still and will look a kiss as you take a swing, as my heart springs from my soul into the orchestra. The sound of lovely things all coming from the strings. A cliche view of how I relate to the orchestra, 'cause I swear the reason why they're there is not for higher purpose, but to make a point, another lovey-dovey stand. But what do we stand for outside these metal doors? Is it to learn Ravel or Adler, or just spite someone else but you? I can't tell you the truth, but I know that I have to leave you now while I still have a chance to try again, to find some other artificial joy to fill my heart like an orchestra. A warm sensation fills my heart. I feel our ending start, as I don't care about the music that they play. No, not today. I won't care about the music that they play, just the way it looks when you look at me that way. Never look at me that way, but never look away. Please don't look away. So don't ever look at me that way. Never look at me that way, 'cause now I'll walk away. I'll walk away. So I'm gonna need you to sit here and stay.
Thanks. We have a few more for you. Sloane's gonna play guitar in this one. So, as you can tell, I talk a lot, and I have a lot of stories to tell with my songs. So, thank you for holding on. So this next one is another story. It's another story of, like I said, I used to live in Berlin, Germany, and I would go down to Munich like twice a month or so to have a lesson, or sometimes give performances and do installations, and gave some talks. But I would go down there, and one time in December 2015, I went with my then boyfriend to Munich to do an installation, and on the way back, we decided to buy bus tickets to Prague, because we would take like 10-hour overnight buses to get to Munich, and Prague is halfway between Berlin and Munich, so we went to Prague, and we were wandering around. We get to step out at like 4 in the morning. We were wandering around, the city's entirely empty, And we're sitting on this bridge that connects Old Town and New Town. And again, it's entirely empty. We're eating breakfast. And I must have noticed about 1,000 swans crossing underneath the bridge while we were doing this. And while this was happening, Max was talking to me about, or I was just thinking a lot about how we had done some traveling and we were talking, and he was 51 at the time, and he was talking about how many people he had known had passed away, or how much the scene had changed there because of the AIDS crisis. And so this song is about that. It's about trying to empathize with such a huge amount of loss in such a short amount of time, but not being able to. And what I'm really trying to say is I hope Ronald Reagan is rotting in his grave. This song is called Swan Song. It's off of an EP I did last year called Piece of Ivy. 6 a.m. on an empty bridge, nestled in the Czech Republic. My jacket's on, but it's not enough. On a wet bench, eating breakfast, cheese with some type of Swedish bread. I can't say the word, but it's in my head. Knäckebrot, brut. I can't pronounce it, but I know I should. Wonder what they're doing now, if he's still with her, and if so, how does the light reflect off your beating eyes while the birds move in a line in a winter garden with a view? Raise a dog that likes to bite through fog. I hope my knees are fine so we can exercise and figure out that swan song. Give it up for Sloan.
Yeah, double great.
So I have 3 more for you. We have 3 more for you. Thanks for listening. This next one is another song off of that upcoming record, and it was written, I just wrote it. It'll be fine. But it was written during a time where I had to make a difficult decision, and it was one of those decisions where you can't see far enough down either path to understand what is better and what is worse, but you have to choose one anyway. And so I had to choose one, and I wrote this song right before I did, and I didn't think much of it until about like a few months later when I was compiling songs for the record, and I was showing it to my friend to get his opinion, and he said that I should put it on the album. And so then I started listening to it more, and I started realizing how much these words that I'd written offhand like a few months earlier, like 8 months earlier, all of a sudden took on this new, very important meaning for me. And so it was my first time with a song that was more versatile and had like other purposes, because music for me is typically very cathartic immediately. And so this is that song. It's called Noise War.
The streets are draped with malice that's recycled from a time when I could not even promise if I would stay the night. There's a phrase that's running through my head that I could not implore. I realize my heart has never kissed this air before. And I realize my heart has never kissed this air before. I don't think I have seen a day where the sun's a better shade. But that's because there's no sun outside now, the sky is gray. But the absence of an image allows me to fill in the hole. So I don't think I have ever seen a sun so beautiful. No, I don't think I have ever seen a sun so beautiful. Why can't I understand that this door locks from the inside? And if the outside rain can't touch the floor, then I don't have to hide. What sounds like a noise war comes from a radio concrete. I see a crowd get frightened and run right across the street. I see a crowd get frightened and run right across the street. My face is draped with malice, but it's changed and now benign. I had to lose track of my place in time and God's design, which I never really believed or had ever accounted for. I realize my heart has never kissed this air before. All I care about is my heart has never kissed this air before.
Thank you to my friend Olivia for letting me borrow her guitar. Currently don't own a guitar. I need to get one. But I was on tour with Olivia and Sloan for the last 2 weeks in August, and that was a blast. We did like 17 shows in 16 days. It was really fun. Yeah. This next song. The single off of the album, so if you look it up you can find a music video and various other stuff. It's about Brexit because I really don't like Boris Johnson. I cut the profanity from that statement for this.
Let it rip, man, if it makes you feel better.
I usually just say F Boris Johnson.
There we go.
And I was playing a show in Paris and someone said, why? And then I said, why not? And then I talked to them afterwards and had a discussion about it. But they actually didn't know, so I Okay, ready?
as I had planned. But sometimes you get a feeling that rips it out of your hands. I want to know how much it takes to remember the coldest night, the coldest night, the coldest night you felt warm in December. Over the course of another year. As I walk past where we had our first date, it hurts to think that some will call this Independence Day. My impulsiveness made a mistake, and now I've got a letter to send. But I don't think there will be another chance to sit outside with you watching other people dance.
Thank you. So I have one more song for you. Thanks again for listening. Another round of applause for the group who sung everything. And I'm super appreciative to have them all in my life. So thank you. I'm going to end things on a bit of a more optimistic note, or just a different note. This is a song, it's another one of those songs that didn't make it onto the record, but if you pre-order it, or just email me, I'll send it to you. I would much rather you have it than not be able to afford a pre-order or something. So. There's not much to say about this one, except for that it was written during a time where I didn't realize that something was developing until it had already started, and kind of being optimistic. In a good way. It's called Sleep at the Wheel. Again, my name is Jake Bellissimo. I used to write music under the name Gay Angel, now I don't. I run a record label called Drunk with Love Records, and I have a new record coming out in October. I go on tour for the month of October. To promote that, it's called The Good We've Sown. You can find everything online, and there's this really great Italian record label who are being very kind and putting out. Their name is We Were Never Being Boring. Yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks Dan for having us.
Thank you, Jake.
Thanks everyone
Appreciate
at Bop Shop for staying here and operating and being so kind. It's really appreciated. 2 a.m. highway roads, driving to the airport to get you and bring Thai basil rice. Won't that be nice? But first I have to drive alone and get over my fear of the road. It's all I've known. Worried that somebody must be dead, but knowing it's all in my head. What more can be said? It doesn't make much sense, but now I feel like I don't need the present tense.
is gone while driving. You could say I'm asleep at the wheel, but my eyes aren't closed or screaming. No, what I mean is that I'm dreaming.